Welcome to r/pro revenge, where OP destroys a man's business, bank account, and his family. Back when I was still in university, I used to work for a hotel to make ends meet. When I started, the hotel very urgently needed new personnel. So I cut a deal with the old owner about getting to choose and pick shifts so I could visit my courses and exams. Speaking some extra foreign languages, I also got a little bonus each month on top. The old owner was a great guy. He owned multiple hotels, so I rarely saw him. But when he was in the house, he always made a point to have drinks with the staff. And if we were free, he even invited those at the front desk to fancy restaurants who were not on shift. Fast forward. I had worked in the hotel for a few years now and was nearing the completion of my studies. So it wouldn't have been an eternity until I had to quit anyway, as I was, of course, more interested to work in my field of study. As part of my deal with the old owner, I mostly chose to work night shifts, allowing me to visit my courses at university during the day. To make up for my privileges, I'd picked up the habit of doing some extra work in the dead of night other shifts would normally have to do, when I could have sat around and stared at the walls. People were grateful for the help in the beginning, and we became a rather tight-knit group, but over time, people rotated in and out. When the old owner retired and his butthole of a son took over the business as the new owner, I already feared the worst. The new owner didn't like me very much. I never found out the exact reason for that one. I was at that point nearly the sole veteran left from when I started. Among the tasks I had taken on was doing light clerical tasks to ease the manager's job in the morning. For that, I generally had to use the manager's network account. One night, while doing my lists, I logged into the manager's account and emailed to do my job. Then, I saw an email with my name in the subject line. I know it's not nice to snoop, but of course, I read it. Turns out, the new owner wanted to get rid of me. I still had my old employee contract with the bonuses for foreign language abilities and was allowed by my contract to pick and choose shifts. I can only assume these privileges are what made the new owner hate me. No idea if he had other reasons. Because, to be honest, these seem very weak to me. But he couldn't fire me without cause. On top of that, I would be owed severance if fired. And generally, there were not enough bodies in the shift rotation without me. Though, the new owner didn't seem to understand that point as the emails told me. I looked for more emails concerning me and found them. There was an email chain between some of the employees, the manager, and the new owner. I was, of course, not CC'd, as I was the hated topic. The employees didn't like me hogging the night shifts, because those paid better, and for every night you worked, you got paid the night bonus. The manager was the only one rather neutral on the matter, and just curbed their enthusiasm to get rid of me, as they needed me to be fully staffed. The new owner and my colleagues actively conspired to make a hostile work environment so I would quit of my own volition. I was furious. I thought about a variety of reactions, from egging their cars to burning down the hotel. But I settled on a less crazy method of revenge. I called my uncle at 2 a.m. asking for advice. My uncle is a lawyer, so for sake of proof, I forwarded myself all the emails. I made photos, printed them out, made copies, and filmed the whole deal just to be sure. My uncle told me to sit tight and see if things got worse, or if it was just bluster, and so I gave it a few days. And things did take a turn. Snide remarks about my looks, clothing, and so on were only the tip of the iceberg. Some of my colleagues were just as professional as before, but the conspirators always left extra work for me or pawned the sucky duties they normally had to do on me. I always kept a spare shirt and suit at work, just to have a change, which suddenly disappeared. One guy even started to threaten me with violence, but I kept clenching my butt cheeks. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of saving on the severance or giving in. I'm a big boy after all. I did, however, stop doing any extra work I was not obligated to do, which, in the end, was the reason they used to fire me. They still had to pay me severance. The next day, my uncle, with bundled proof of the email and all documented harassment by my colleagues, served the hotel my lawsuit. It started with wrongful termination and ended with harassment. Reportedly, the manager went white as a sheet when he realized where the emails must have come from. The new owner had been on vacation and had to cancel his expensive vacation in France to deal with this. Their counsel advised them to settle. So I accepted my severance and a hefty bonus on top. enough money to last me until the end of university without work. But that was not all my revenge. I had gone after the new owner's money, but in the next step, I went after the hotel. I had used all the spare time during night shifts alone to document every last violation of city, county, district, state, and federal law I could find. That went from minor things like some harmless mold under the kitchen sink to substantial violations like modifications to the building. The building was under a limited form of historical protection by federal law on the grounds of being built and inhabited by somewhat important historical figures a few hundred years back. So every renovation or change in floor plans needs to be signed off on by a committee, which can take ages. There's also a grant paid to the new owner by the government for keeping the building intact as is. So with my uncle's help, I sent documentation of every violation I could find to the corresponding agency. In 1 month, everything from health, building code, fire safety to the finance and work police crawled over the hotel. In the end, it was the building and fire inspectors that shut the place down. The new owner had done substantial renovations to the top floor luxury apartments, which he used when he was in town. So the new owner had to pay back the grant, pay fines for unauthorized alterations to the building, endangering his guests because something wasn't built right according to fire code, and had to close down shop until the building was fixed. I also tipped off a friend who had studied journalism and worked at a local paper. The paper ran an article on all the violations accumulated, which tanked the business once it reopened, as the newspaper article had led to horrible reviews. In the end, to afford all the fines, repayments, and building costs, the new owner sold the hotel. As the cherry on top, all the buttholes who had tried to harass me out lost their job. Granted, the people who didn't do anything to me lost their jobs too, but didn't do anything to stand up for me to help me either, so I don't feel too much remorse. And the revenge cherry on top was that the new owner, whenever he was in town, used to bring home escorts, which in my country isn't illegal, but he was married. It took some doing to get that information to the new owner's wife. But one of my former colleagues who had quit before this had all happened had her email. So I let her know what the new owner was up to when he was out of town. I don't know what exactly happened, but they did divorce in the end. Make of that what you will. First you took his money, then you took his business, then you took his marriage. Jesus Christ, OP, you do not mess around. Our next Reddit post is from Cinelaria. My parents had me when they were plenty young. They weren't teens anymore, but had barely left that age bracket. My mom and dad met in college. That was also when they had me. So while my parents were in their courses, I mostly stayed with my grandparents. The whole family lives in the same area, and the college wasn't that far away. My parents were still young and liked to go out with friends on occasion. When the following happened, I was a few years old. On occasion, they frequented a bar. A drunk guy there groped my mom and did not take no as a no. My dad intervened and stopped the guy, and half an hour later, all seemed forgotten. The music was loud, the bar crowded, and then someone in the crowd hit my dad with an empty glass pitcher square in the face. He was bleeding profusely and collapsed, but in the pressed semi-darkness and over the music, no one knew who did it. My dad got taken to the hospital. He had a broken nose and a heavy concussion. He also couldn't see who had attacked him, and his memory between the alcohol and being hit in the head was also very fuzzy. Of course, they'd considered the guy who had harassed my mom, but they didn't know him, nor did they see him anywhere leading up to that moment, let alone have any evidence. So they pressed charges against unknown, but there was virtually nothing anyone could do. But then a few days later, that piece of garbage that had harassed my mom approached her on campus. Turns out, he was in the same college as my parents. He made a few veiled comments and left little doubt that it had been him that hit my dad in the face. And the piece of garbage let my mom know that my dad next time should mind his manners. And the little touching he had done didn't hurt anyone and wasn't that bad. And if he wanted to do it again, he would, and maybe more. And then the piece of garbage went on his merry way. My mom was horrified, of course. She went home and told my grandparents, my dad, and his parents. But no one could do anything. It was a he said, she said deal after all, and my mom hadn't even gotten the guy's name. My mom cried a lot at that time and didn't know what to do. She also was afraid of going to classes or out alone. I honestly only remember that time very scarcely. I was just a little kid, but I can remember my dad in the hospital and with his broken nose, and my mom crying a lot. My dad, of course, was just as angry and humiliated as my mom. No one knew what to do, and everyone was treading on eggshells around each other. But that's where my uncle enters the stage. My uncle, my mom's brother, lived on the other side of the country. He was a private investigator, and he was, of course, the last to hear the full story. But the moment he heard someone had threatened his little sister, he was on his way home. After hearing the full story, my uncle knew it would likely be hard to get the guy on the harassment, the assault, or the threats. And no evidence. My uncle had my mom point the guy out from afar on campus. It took a few days to find him. But then, my uncle started to stalk that piece of human filth. My uncle took sick days, all his vacation, and invested every second possible to find out everything about the harasser. My uncle even approached the pig in another bar and became drinking buddies with him. Over several weeks, my uncle had uncovered all manner of illicit behavior: possession, consumption, and distribution of drugs, theft, and a few other misdemeanors and small-time stuff. And my uncle could have put him away for that. But my uncle always said when asked about it that if he were to send this douchebag to prison, it would be for molesting my mom and hurting my dad. And that's what he did. One night, while out with his new buddy drinking, my uncle made the idiot piss drunk and they landed in my uncle's motel room. He got the harasser to incriminate himself on video, ratting off a list of illegal stuff he was up to. My uncle, of course, pretended to be a crook too. Among the stories this douchebag told was the story of how he groped some chick and framed her dude with a pitcher of beer. Now, something needs to be said. In my country, recording someone in secret is illegal, and under some conditions, like if the police do it, it's not a permissible piece of evidence in court. But as a private investigator, my uncle knew the laws for that exactly. But paradoxically, the situation is different if it's not only audio, but also has video. And my uncle had the douchebag on camera confessing. The next day, my uncle turned himself into the police with all his collected evidence, because secretly filming people was still a crime. But the video could be used as evidence in court, as my uncle was not affiliated with the police or any other governmental agency. When the criminal trial and the civil trial were over, the douchebag got 6 years in prison and had to pay damages to my mom and dad. And my uncle got slapped with the equivalent of a $2,000 fine for secretly filming this douchebag. Money well spent, he always said. Honestly, I'm surprised that the prosecutor even wanted to press charges against your uncle. I would have been like, so let me get this straight. You befriended a criminal and got him to confess on tape to all these crimes, basically doing our job for us? Thanks, bud. Don't worry, I'll drop the charges. But even without that, I agree, that is $2,000 very well spent. Our next Reddit post is from Scott3496. I used to work in a disability shared accommodation agency. It's a job where you support 4 to 6 people with disabilities who share the accommodation. It's shift work, 2 clients per staff member during the day, 1 staff member on a sleepover at night. The rosters are 4-week rotating rosters. I was employed as a 0.75, meaning I work 75% of what is considered full-time, equating to 57 hours a fortnight. Working shifts sucked, but the pay was good. I was working in a house I'll call Sunup. Sunup had 4 residents and 7 workers. Each house had a house supervisor. They reported to the cluster manager, who managed 6 houses. Cluster managers report to the CEO. By company policy, leave requests are first in, best dressed, meaning you need to put your leave in early to ensure you get it. I was transferred to Sunup from a 6-client house due to my qualifications and situations I cannot legally disclose. I worked for the first year, got to know staff, clients, house supervisor, etc. There was an obvious clique between 4 staff members. Each school holidays, 3 would apply for leave, and 1 would call in sick with a medical certificate covering the same amount of time. They would always rotate who was sick to hide what they were up to. They were friends outside of work and would party together. After a year, the house supervisor fell sick. One of the clique members, Karen, was appointed acting supervisor, and it went to hell. She tried reducing my hours and giving extra time to a friend. I pointed out that I'm contracted for 57 hours a fortnight, so I'm getting paid for 57 hours a fortnight. Her friends got extra shifts, were given the best shifts, and were all around favored by Karen. In January, I put in leave for March school holidays. Karen rejected it on the grounds that others had already submitted leave. Her clique all applied for this time. I left this alone. In March, I checked the leave calendar for the June school holidays. Each house has a leave calendar, so management and staff can check their schedule leave. It was empty. I submitted leave again, and it was rejected. Karen said, "Sorry, you were too slow. Karen said that A, B, and C, members of the clique, already submitted leave." The next day, the leave calendar showed this. In May, I checked the Christmas leave calendar, put in my leave, and sure enough, got the same result. This annoyed me, as I have a family that I wanted to take on holiday. I spoke to the cluster manager, also a part of the clique, who said there's nothing I can do. Note, I'd taken no leave in 2 years. January the following year, the clique was on holiday. We had a gastro outbreak across our facilities, so we were short-staffed. All available staff, including the CEO, were covering shifts. I was rostered on with the CEO one shift. During the shift, he said to me, "OP, you have a bit of leave accumulated. You should probably take some." I put in 3 requests last year. All were rejected, as others apparently already applied for those dates now. Let's lock in your leave now. Okay, how about 4 weeks over Christmas? I filled out the forms, CEO signed off. He filled out the leave calendar and put my application in Karen's pigeonhole. I was on sleepover that night, so I took my application, photocopied it for myself, and replaced it under the mountain of paperwork in her pigeonhole, knowing she wouldn't see it for a few months. In March, I checked the leave calendar and noticed my Christmas leave disappeared, replaced with Karen A, B, and C. I didn't say anything, as I had a leave form with a CEO signature. Fast forward to October. The original house supervisor passed away, and the acting supervisor was appointed to the permanent supervisor position by the cluster manager with a mandatory 3-month probation. December comes around. First week of my leave, I get a call from Karen. "Where are you?" "On leave." "I didn't approve any leave. Get your butt to work now." I come in. Karen chews me out, stating she didn't get an application form. Karen went on to say, "Even if you submitted it, I would reject it, as you should know by now that we always take 2 weeks in December and January." She wrote me up for insubordination. I worked that shift. When Karen left, I emailed the CEO filling him in on what happened. He called a meeting with me and Karen. What happened? Karen cut me off. "OP took it upon himself to approve leave. I wrote him up for skipping work." "Actually, I submitted leave in January while you were away." "No, you didn't." "Yes, he did. I approved it and added it to the leave calendar." "Oh, we already had 4 staff booked on leave." "Show me the leave forms." I destroyed them." I handed Karen my copy of the form signed by the CEO. "OP is on leave. I'm going to sun up and I'm investigating the situation. OP, my apologies. Go home. I'm extending your leave by an extra week." I go home. I come in 4.5 weeks later to be told that Karen has lost her promotion. She's on thin ice. The CEO found out that Karen has been rejecting leave requests. She shredded my request without looking past the dates. She deleted my leave from the calendar. The CEO told Karen that this borders on fraud. The CEO also separated the clique to different houses. He changed the leave policy to state that he must sign off leave requests, in addition to house supervisor and cluster managers. He ensured that all staff had access to prime leave dates. Karen was fired 2 weeks later for failing audit requirements. Considering their job was to take care of disabled people who couldn't care for themselves, I'm thinking it's probably pretty likely they did a sucky job of this. I mean, if they don't show respect to their coworker.
As part of your credit card's reward program, there's a 5% discount applied to your hotel room.
Welcome to r/Tinder, where love is in the air. Question: tell me a story about yourself that sounds like a lie, but is absolutely true. I met this dude on Tinder and asked him what his last name was. He told me, then replied, "You doing a little background check? You might find out that I'm a murderer. Just ignore that." Okay.
Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen tries to get me fired from my amusement park. After that, I don't work here and keep your hands off me. After that, mess with the marching band? March yourself home. And after that, teacher tries to use my disabilities against me. I got her fired. Now Karen assured me if we can get 1,000 likes on this video, she won't try getting anyone else fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And huge shout out to our newest official member of the Re-Army, John Fox Taylor. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Join as an official channel member today, and I'll give you a special shout out in our next video. Karen tries to get me fired from my amusement park. I worked at an amusement park at this time. We got snooty parents and kids, etc. all the time. Figured I'd start sharing some stories. This is technically a repost, but it got taken down, so I'm putting it here. Hopefully it'll stay up this time. Third time's a charm, am I right? So here I am, kind of dreading coming into work at this point, because I know I have about 3 days left of working as a ride operator. From there, I would go to work at the National Archives or the Smithsonian. I think I had decided on National Archives at this point, but I honestly don't remember. This becomes relevant later. So, I'm working at my favorite ride in the park. It's called the Music Express. If you know the ride that spins in a circle, goes up and down a little, goes backwards sometimes, it's that. They're everywhere. Ours, in this case, has a seatbelt and a latch bar. I'm working there with someone, which is unusual, as we were understaffed in that section due to a promotional event we were doing. We load up everyone, and when I got back down to the entrance zone after double checking my partner's work, and him mine, we really care about safety. You were fired for not being up to standard on safety. I get someone who we'll call Karen. She asks me to come over to her and asks me to look at her daughter's arm, who's about 5 or so. The exchange goes as follows. We've got me, Karen, and Karen's daughter. Me. What am I supposed to be looking at? Karen. What do you mean, what are you supposed to be looking at? Look at her arm. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to be looking at here. You hurt her arm. Me, honestly confused. Do you mind showing me where? Show him your elbow. Karen's daughter points to the inside of her elbow. I now realize exactly where this is going. This is going to be an entitled mom trying to get something because her baby is hurt. It continues. Me, figuring out what's on her arm. Are you okay? Is there anything I can get you? Is she okay? She's been screaming at you for the past 5 minutes, and other people have been trying to get your attention. I want you to get her ice at the very least. Me, knowing this is all wrong. I don't have ice here, but I can direct you to first aid. Karen cuts me off. No, we're on the ride. We want to ride it, and she needs ice now. Me, as I said, I can direct you to first aid. Fine, we'll do it your way. We'll go to first aid, but we're not riding. She said this like it was some sort of threat. Saying I'm not riding as a threat isn't new to me anymore. I'm used to it. But I do also want to add a quick addendum that once we check all the seats, we can't leave the ride area due to safety concerns I won't get into. New addition, FCW is friendly coworker. Me. That's fine. I can't go with you to first aid though. What? Why? It's a safety concern because I'm a 9-year season pass holder and I know you can come with me. Me. Having finally gotten them out of their cars, like I said before, I can't. Haven't you heard the customer is always right? You're coming with me. Me. I can't. However, if you follow a certain path, you can reach first aid. Karen gets to the entrance and sees guest service flag. Why can't you have excellent guest service like the person who got that? You're terrible at your job. I'm a 9-year season pass holder and work for the state. I'm going to have you fired. Me. Actually, I earned that flag. I also have, pointing to something on my shirt, this because I'm one of the best operators in the park. No, you're not. Get me some ice from that booth and we'll be on our way. Me, I'm sorry. As I've said before, there's no ice in the booth. Karen, friendly coworker, get my daughter some ice from the booth. Friendly coworker, I can. We don't have ice in the booth. Karen, stomping towards the booth. I'm getting you both fired. I'm a 9-year season pass holder and work for the state.
Most name brand bars and body washes you rub on your skin are classified by the FDA as synthetic detergent. It's not even real soap. Stop marinating your man meat in unholy ingredients that are harmful to your well-being, body.
8. Me. At this point, fed up with these antics she puts on for the past 15 minutes. So you outrank me because you work for the state and I work for an amusement park? Yes. Me. In about 2 weeks, I'll be working for the national government in DC, which means, per your own standards, I outrank you. Karen, fuming with anger. Get me a pen and a sheet of paper. I'm writing down both of your names and having you fired. Me grabs a sheet of paper and pulls the pin off my visor that I always have with me. My name is Average Dude 1990. Karen pushes down on the pen so hard that the top of the ballpoint pen pops off and the ink with it. Mighty convenient, isn't that? Get me another pen. She whips the pen at me, which I dodge. Friendly coworker hands her another pen. My name is Friendly Coworker. Karen, how do I know your name is Average Dude? Keep in mind, by this point, she had checked my ID on 2 separate occasions before this, and I have a name tag that clearly displays my name on my chest. At this point, my memory gets fuzzy as I was completely caught off guard from Karen harassing me for a solid 20 minutes. She eventually leaves, and I try my best to going back to being my usually cheery operator self. You know, the one that has multiple awards from the park and one from a training company, as well as having been videotaped for random screening of the park to then be later used as a model for how to be a good operator. When my supervisor comes over and tells me I need to see the head of ride operations, HRO, Karen had apparently accused me of assault, being an overall rude and arrogant jerk, as well as being rude to other guests, as well as Friendly Coworker. Head of Ride Operations asks for my side of the story. I say that I was working at the Music Express with Friendly Coworker when she stops me. HRO. Wait, you don't mean other ride? Me. What? Is that what she said? Just asking. Me. Well, neither me or Friendly Coworker are trained at the other ride, and only one person can be operating it at a time. HRO. Well, she did say that ride. Me, laughing at the stupidity of it and relief. No, as I said, that would not be possible. That's basically how the conversation went, and Friendly Coworker confirmed everything I said. We were both sent home for the day, with pay, to make sure she wouldn't try to start anything more. The next day I come in to find out that multiple people on the ride and in line at the Music Express had reported her for berating me and just wanted to make sure I wouldn't be fired. Because of the statements of those people, combined with mine and Friendly Coworkers' written accounts of what had happened, she had her season pass revoked and was banned from the park for the rest of the year. A satisfying ending if you ask me. Thanks for reading this. I know it's long, but I just discovered this subreddit and this felt too good to not share. What is your favorite amusement park? Please leave a comment letting me know. Next we've got I Don't Work Here and Keep Your Hands Off Me. So when I go shopping, I always have headphones in and am either on the phone with my girlfriend about groceries or listening to music. This time I was listening to a podcast. Not important, but if you must know, it's the Misfits podcast. Something about myself is that I am 5'11" to 6 foot, so I usually get asked to help people get things off the shelf. I actually had once joked about having a hat that says, "Yes, I can help you get that off the top shelf." Well, today as I am going through the store doing my thing, I get stopped and asked by these ladies, one in her late 40s, the other very much older, I assume mother and daughter, to grab these very large water jugs that were, for some reason, on the top shelf. Without hesitation, I get them. They thank me and then ask if I know about something else to be in stock, and I told them that I'm sorry, but I don't work here. I wear nothing but black almost every day of my life, and that just so happens to be the uniform here, so I don't ever get upset when I get confused for an employee. They apologize, and I go back to my cart. I could feel the presence behind me as I began to walk away. That eerie feeling, then that ominous noise of the throat clear, and I knew I had a Karen behind me. I turn around thinking she was wanting me to get something from the top shelf. "Hi, did you need me to get something from the upper shelf?" I say with my customer service smile.
This is Golga.
Hey.
This is Golga's personal trimmer.
The sharpest rock in the whole forest.
Thank goodness for evolution, huh?
That was rude.
Throughout history, women have put themselves through some pretty painstaking hygiene regimens. The time has come for men to take grooming and self-care seriously.
This permanent eyeliner is gonna look so fire, you guys.
And thanks to the brilliant minds at Manscaped, men don't have to put themselves through pain to do it. Introducing the Lawnmower 3.0, a precision-engineered personal trimmer for your man's nether regions.
Have you seen my man's nether regions?
I haven't. But with its proprietary skin
Smile. She smacks her lips and rolls her eyes. "Ugh, no. I want you to go in the back for me and get me some more of these." She then holds up some cake mix box. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't actually work here." "Don't lie to me. You're in uniform and just helped them. The least you can do is help me get some cake for my church sale." I think to myself, this really can't be real. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I really don't work here. I just understand that I'm tall and I can reach the top shelf." I turn my body around, but still have my face turned towards her as I go to finish speaking. "Have a good day." I then began to walk off. "Hey, don't you walk away from me." She grabs my arm and pulls me towards her. "You show respect to your elders," she says as she's still gripping my arm. Something about me is that I have very little tolerance for people grabbing at me without my permission. "Ma'am, I'd advise letting me go," I say to her, my smile gone, and the lifeless cold look I give when I'm angry. She looks disgusted at me and raises her other hand, which looks like she's going to sock me. "Don't talk to," I cut her off. "I said let go." She looked ghost-white and backed away. "I do not work here, but I do believe the gentleman behind you does and can help you. Don't ever touch me again." And I began to go forward once more. I hear her scream at me that she's going to tell my manager, who is passing by to talk to the guy I had pointed out, and looks at me. "Sir, do you work here? I don't recognize you." I put on my smile again. "No, ma'am, I don't work here, but I can understand why you think that." And I began walking to the checkout. She just went to the horrid woman behind me who is screaming about me being fired and tries to calm her down. I check out and head to my car, and I notice a man about the same age as her, just relaxing and having a cigarette, letting out a long sigh. "Long day, bud?" "No, not really, but some guy just upset my wife, and I'm glad that I don't have to go in to try and thank him for that long car ride home," he said with a smile and an obvious sarcastic tone. I chuckle a bit, but when I turn away, I make the obvious face and a wide-eyed look. Have you ever been mistaken for an employee? Please leave a comment letting me know. Next we've got Mess with the Marching Band? March yourself home. I went to a very large secondary school, middle plus high school in the United States, with a population of over 4,000 students. Because of the school's size and excellent funding, the marching band had its own percussion equipment, wheeled carts, and golf carts to pull them, which were stored in cargo containers in the back parking lot by some classroom trailers. I was on the equipment crew for the marching band, and by the time my senior year rolled around, the containers were about 30 years old and one had started leaking. The band director, let's call him Mr. Connex, finally was able to get them replaced after begging the administration for several years. The new ones would be arriving on a Friday, and a different company would be hauling away the old ones on Wednesday of the next week. So for a few days, the old containers were going to be taking up a section of the parking lot. This wasn't a problem, because the night before, after rehearsal, Mr. Connex had us measure out an extensively large section of the back parking lot and cone it off, so the crew would have plenty of room to work the next day. We filled up the band hall with all the equipment and had the containers empty so the crew could move them, put the new ones in their place with minimal effort the next day. This is the part I only heard about, because I was in class when it happened. The assistant band director was running the band classes for the first part of the day, and Mr. Connex was outside making sure everything would be just so, when all of a sudden a lady drives up, narrowly threads the gap between two cones, and parks right in the middle of where the old containers are going to be stored until next week. Let's call her Mrs. Seekin. Mrs. Seekin had an important meeting with her daughter's guidance counselor. Mr. Connex walks over and politely informs her that she will need to park somewhere else because the forklift crew would be arriving soon, and in return she went off on him, complaining that because they had coned off so much of the back parking lot, the nearest parking was off campus and she'd need to walk about a quarter mile.
People take amazing photos of things every day, like grapefruits. And because we're so good at taking photos,
to get to the main building from there. Mr. Connex told her one more time that she was parked in the middle of the space that the workmen needed, and she told him in no uncertain terms to buzz off before heading around towards the front of the building. At this point, Mr. Connex called the principal, Dr. Intermodal, and informed him of the situation. Unfortunately, with the number of buildings on campus and how many guidance counselors there are in a school with over 4,000 students, it would take the better part of an hour to actually figure out where on the campus she had gone and which guidance counselor she was meeting. Our school had over 20. The school resource officer could probably write them a ticket, but that was about all he could do. Calling a tow truck would probably be faster, but even then, it would take about 30 minutes at least to get the car out of the way, and the work crew would be arriving in 10, and any delay would be an unexpected expense for the school. Then Mr. Connex had an idea. He ran it by Dr. Intermodal, and the principal ratified it, so he set his plan into motion. When the work crew arrived, several semi-trucks carrying the newer containers and a forklift, Mr. Connex gave them very specific instructions for how to arrange the old containers when they moved them out of the way for the other company to pick up. A perfect box around Mrs. Seekin's car, with barely enough room for a person to step through between the corners. Her SUV was going to spend hard time in car jail until Wednesday. Then the new containers were unloaded where the old ones had been and the work crew left. About an hour later was my band class period, and since being in marching band was a requirement for the symphonic band, everyone in the room was part of the band, so everyone got conscripted to move the equipment back out into the new containers. Some of us noticed the car in the middle of the old containers, but nobody had a chance to ask the director about it until about halfway through the process when Mrs. Seekin returned and shouted these legendary words, which I shall never forget until the day I die. "What the heck? Where is my car?" I can only imagine the sheer terror she felt upon rounding the corner and finding the place where she had parked her car replaced with a giant steel box. To this, Mr. Connex simply, calmly responded, "Exactly where I told you not to park it." At this point, literally everyone had stopped working, and the few of us who had noticed the trapped car surmised what had happened and were basically dying of laughter. Mrs. Seekin ran over to the containers and looked through the gap and screamed when she saw there was literally no way for her to get the car out. "You should fix this right now! You should fix this right now!" she demanded, storming towards Mr. Connex. He simply shrugged and told her that the containers were getting towed away on Wednesday next week. She could easily retrieve her car then. This only seemed to make her more mad, and at this point, me and some of the other larger dudes moved between her and the band director because she looked about ready to bite his head off. At this point, the director essentially delivered the ultimatum that if she had no further business on school grounds, she should leave or he'd call the SRO, school resource officer, a police officer stationed at the school. Her response was something along the lines of, "Call him! Call him! Show him what you did to my car! That's a crime!" I don't know what crime she thought the band director committed, but long story short, the SRO arrived, laughed his butt off, then instructed her to leave school grounds and come back for her car on Wednesday. She screamed at him a bit about how she couldn't walk 4 miles home. Oh, poor you. And the SRO, after a few minutes, was done with her crap and told her if she didn't leave school grounds immediately, she'd be cited for trespassing, at which point she left. The cherry on top. Over the weekend, someone stole the wheels off the car. So even after the containers were moved, she couldn't get her car until one of those portable service companies came and put new wheels on it at some point Friday afternoon. Next we've got, teacher tries to use my disabilities against me. I got her fired. This takes place in the fall of the 2016 to 2017 school year. I was a senior at the time. The teacher in question was an English teacher that I will call Miss Dog, because her name could also be a type of animal. Miss Dog was particularly nice for the most part. She had a really high-pitched and nasally voice that she loved to hear at all times. The first day of school, I introduced myself to her and asked if she read over my 504 plan. For people who do not know, a 504 plan is an accommodation plan used in public education when a student has certain disabilities that need accommodations. In my plan, it stated that I am a high-functioning autistic. I needed clear and concise written instructions and a special chair because of my spinal issues. I had scoliosis as a kid and had a spinal fusion operation my freshman year, so I was known as the girl with the back brace in middle school and the girl with the metal back in high school. Essentially, everyone in my grade, which was also everyone in this particular class since it was English 12, knew I needed a special chair. Back to the first day of school, I introduced myself to Miss Dog and asked if she read over my 504 plan. She brushes me off and does a, yeah. Okay, whatever. Teachers are busy and their jobs are really stressful. She probably has a million other things she had to get done. For the first week of class, I had to take some pain meds to get through English. Miss Dog would regularly get upset that I had brought a bottle of water with me to class every day and that I couldn't stay still in my seat. A classmate of mine, I'll call him Football Jock, spoke up and told the teacher that I do not have the special chair that I need. Miss Dog took that as an insult and was ready to chew out Football Jock when pretty much the entire class started to speak and agree with him. The weekend passes, and Monday I find my chair/desk hybrid thing replaced with a special chair and a separate desk. I had thought it was over. Oh boy, was I wrong. This was just the start. Fast forward to the middle of the semester. We had just finished reading Lord of the Flies. Great book, by the way. And we had an assignment to make a music soundtrack for a hypothetical movie of the book and explain what parts of the story would have what song played. Now, I'm a big Vocaloid fan, so I went all out, but I made sure to use English covers of songs that weren't in English. After we get the grades for the projects, I see that I got a C on it, which was really odd for me since I was a straight A student. I asked Miss Dog about it, and she told me her reasoning for the C was that I didn't know what any of those songs are. I was going to give you an F, but your written part and CD case were both perfect, so I gave you a C. All while not looking away from her computer screen. I wasn't happy with that answer. I told her, in the middle of class, when you said everyone did a good job, you mentioned that everyone's projects had songs you'd never heard before. Did you give everyone else an F as well? She turned to me with a big scowl, before just turning right back to her computer, where I saw her change my grade to an A-. Not the plus I wanted, but enough to save me from getting told off at home for getting a bad grade. And then comes the icing on the cake. All semester, Miss Dog had me doing things to kind of single me out. She always assigned me with the dumb kids of the class. No matter how stupid it sounds, this dude literally drew a picture when the question sheet said draw your own conclusions. And whenever Miss Dog did this, I would always calmly and politely take it up with her, and she'd fix it by next week with a sneer. It's December, right before the holidays. Miss Dog assigns a scholarly paper about a real social issue with 3 sources. The topics of the essays were assigned to us randomly. We had no say, and we couldn't even change them. So my topic was something along the lines of healthcare. I was also taking a health occupation class at the school district's vocational tech center, and my grandmother is a licensed medical biller, meaning I know a thing or two about health insurance. I ask Miss Dog for help, saying that I can't find a third source for my stance. She tells me, 2 is fine then. I thank her for her help and get to work writing my essay. The due date is the day before the break, and we'll all turn our papers in. One happy Christmas and New Year's later, I get to English class. Miss Dog is standing up at the front of the class as we all come in, which is really odd for her to do. The bell rings and Miss Dog starts her rant. I had high hopes for these papers. I had hoped you all would follow the directions. She looked at me while making direct eye contact. I had hoped you all would know that I told you all 3 sources, not 2, 3. She went into a yelling tantrum about how someone didn't have 3 sources, making eye contact with me the entire time. I'm the kind of person to cry whenever someone is yelling in anger. It doesn't matter if it's directed at me or not. I'll cry. So after her rant, I took my stuff and left the classroom. I think I had gone to the band area to hide until the next class. While in my crying solitude, I finally said enough was enough. I'd usually just keep quiet about stuff like this. I was used to being teased for things since it happened a lot, and I thought this was no different. But it was. This jerk needed to pay. I got up and went to the office. I hated going to the office even though I never got in trouble. The feeling of just being in there just made me feel guilty. I asked to see the principal, and they let me. The principal of my high school was a very nice man that later went on to getting a position higher up in the school district after I had graduated. I sat down in the principal's office, and he was ready to hear the usual bully spiel a crying student would say. I took a second to compose myself and said, Miss Dog has been using my disabilities as a way to alienate me from the class, and as a way to treat me as a lesser being in her class. She doesn't grade my work fairly, and she just screamed at me in front of the whole class to point out that I wasn't like the rest of the students in her class. I've never forgotten what I said, or the principal's face either. He sighed and muttered something along the lines of, God, not again with Dog. Turns out I was not the only disabled student that Miss Dog had done this to. Every student with any sort of mental or physical condition put in one of her classes was given this treatment by her. I decided to keep it going. It was already over for her, so why not make it as good as I could? Miss Dog has also repeatedly mistreated me during class by doing this and that. I went on for I don't remember how long with glorifying the events of everything that had happened in that class. I said how she had constantly threatened to fail me, how she'd give me bad grades wrongfully, how she did so many more things that may or may not have happened because of my condition. I also made sure to mention how most times her class was physically painful for me, on most days because she would take my special chair and use it as a footrest and make me sit on an uncomfortable stool. Which was true, she did take my chair quite often and then scolded me for bringing a water bottle into the classroom when I had to take some meds for pain. I was Michelangelo, and all these accusations against Miss Dog was the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. My masterpiece. I don't snitch, but when I do, I squeal like a pig. Every single wrongdoing that Miss Dog had done to me, and others in my class as well, were told to the principal that day. For the rest of the semester, I had to spend the time I'd be in English in the main office. I was exempt from the exams for the class, and had automatically passed due to my flawless straight A's and 3.7 GPA. I had learned that the day of exams, the principal had gone to Miss Dog's classroom when first period started. He told her that she wasn't allowed to administer the exams and that he would instead because she was fired and needed to get her personal belongings and leave the school property immediately. I don't know how true the part where she was fired in front of students was, since I was told that part by other students from the rumor mill. But I know for sure that she was indeed fired. But that wasn't it. I was in marching band in high school, and my school's band was about 300 kids in my senior year. My grandma also did their student accounts. I told my grandma to send a newsletter out to all the marching band parents about how they need to be aware that some teachers are not there for the best interest of their students, and we made sure to put Miss Dog's name in it, along with her crimes against little old me. 300 students, which meant around 600 or more parents. Parents that work at other school districts in some cases. Miss Dog is no longer allowed to work at any school or educational facility. She is also not allowed to work at places that work with disabled people. Last thing I heard of her, she was working 3 part-time jobs in fast food. Not 2, 3. And shoutouts to our Regenerals of the day, Kimberly, Manhunter, and Caveman Felician. Become tomorrow's Regenerals by leaving as many rees as you can in the comments below, and please listen to my playlist every night when you go to sleep. Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today, entitled Mom Takes My Car. After that, get me fired? Say goodbye to your bonus and promotion. After that, guy scams me online. He loses, I become a hero. After that, don't interrupt me when I'm trying to upsell. And after that, Karen thinks she can walk in my house and help herself to my dinner. Now Karen assured me if we can get 1,000 likes on this video, she won't try taking anyone else's dinner for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And by the way, join as an official member of the Re-Army today, and I'll give you a special shout out in our next video. Entitled Mom Takes My Car. This happened yesterday, and I'm still mad. An important note, I'm in a wheelchair most of the time and have parking plates on our car. Our cast. We've got me, we've got my fiance, we've got entitled mother and entitled father. This past week, my fiance and I have been staying with her parents 4 hours away for her sister's wedding, along with more of her extended family. Until yesterday, the trip had been lovely. Her family are surprisingly accepting of us and helpful when it comes to my disability. We arrived a few days earlier than other family members, so fiance can spend more time with her parents and siblings. Since we've arrived, we've been joined by her grandparents, cool uncle and his kids, plus her brother,